Talking about living a dynamic life is really cool and interesting. It makes life realistic, for one thing, allows room for adapting to whatever the day brings, allows a day to breathe and move and flow, allows us to be natural. But one thing that I keep coming back to and revisiting is how much a part of art I've been really digging into in person and in a lot of different ways. AI has inspired me to get more into this in drawing in notebooks and just sketchbooks with full out paper. And over the years in life, I've just had a lot of different times where I've been working with poster board, clay, including air dry clay, pottery clay, all these different ways of working with art, collecting resin art. I love resin art for a sense of being really involved in spirituality and being able to appreciate the work that is being done within our community in spirituality, in really theming your design. And so we get back into like the artist part that wants to really design, that wants to bring everything all together. What do we do with all of this? Well, we can get into being dynamic and still have fun designing our life. So for this, as I am getting back to my love of lemon water, I've had a love of lemon water for over 10 years, probably around like since I was a real little kid. I've always loved lemon water since I was like all my life. It's crazy. Since I was probably around 10 or 11 and just would notice how good it was getting, I'd get soda and stuff, and then, we'd be out getting water, getting lemon, and how good it is. And so I've always loved it. So we make sure that that is a priority, just like coffee and tea and everything that brings it all together. But it makes me think about, I'm sitting at my dining room table right now, and what's interesting about this lemon water is that somebody had to really get into their artist zone to design this. And so we're doing this in life all the time. We're scientists experimenting, we're artists experimenting. And so that's one thing I don't want to ignore. So when I'm thinking about the ways we do things that are way more involved with creativity and less involved with having a certain routine, but yet designing different elements of life and bringing it all together. That's kind of what I go into in my roots and my whole thing in life that we can all return to, because one of the ways that this interests me is like, if you think about, if you're in your home and you've got a lot of girls, you'll notice, if you're a girl, you'll do this too, maybe even just for convenience. You may not even be into fashion much, but for convenience, you're going to design a hairstyle that's going to get your hair out of your way. Even guys, like even if you're a guy and you are, cutting your hair a certain way, we wash our hair a certain way, right? So that's just it. We have certain combs and certain ways that we put our hair up to get it out of our way, or cut our hair shorter with some style to it so that it's still cute and really out of the way, but yet stylish for us, comfortable for us. something that we could wear that we like, not for anybody else, hopefully. Or if it happens to be that you wear your hair for other people as well, hopefully it's at least something that you've designed yourself, whether you're whatever gender you are. It also brings me back into what we're doing. And so, one of the things that we do that a lot of us, it brings out the scientist in us, is we cook. And I'm starting to think of cooking and food and nutrition more about the science that I love, that I've always gravitated towards since I was a kid. I'm not thinking so much about it from I have to cook to do chores, I have to make sure there's food on the table because, you know, my husband and I are luckily both very creative in different ways in doing different things. And I tend to be creative in a way of like, let's design our life around certain times where we maybe want a big dinner. I'm gravitating towards a lot of things, for instance, that our family grew up with, that some of it was something that was absolutely part of the day that I never realized how much I appreciated. And then other things were not really allowed in the day. Like, for example, my kitchen table growing up, our kitchen table was more like an office and really wasn't allowed to be, it wasn't the place where we ate. It wasn't like a terrible screaming match about it, but it was just like very much known in a quiet sort of way that we eat to be comfortable and we eat and have tables specifically just for eating that we will easily clean off and wipe down and have placemats for. And so what's different is that when I went into my husband's family, growing up is really, there was a fun time of like cooking. And the first time that I seen this where cooking is being done at the table, I'm like, is this allowed? Yes, it is. It was very, very much sitting down, a big spread with everything you need to cook and prep and everything else. Everybody sitting together cooking. We end up having conversations. We talk. We have the TV on and maybe a favorite movie or show is playing and we talk and lots of activity going on. And this was definitely encouraged. Sometimes some of us would be doing some different things at the counter, but things would actually be plugged in, like cookware, little electric stovetops, little ovens, things that we would get, or things that we definitely already had that were good for cooking, skillets and stuff, and George Foreman's. And so really cool to think about how much that mattered as far as cooking and really enjoying it, because then we can be at the table, cook, work really well in a spread, and then eat. And I never realized how much I actually missed that. And because of that, it makes me want to eat at the table again because there's more of a purpose behind it. It's not only cleaner, but there's a much more comfortable spread of everybody being together. Also, the table has become more of an office for us, while having the back studio has not actually become our office that I thought it would be. It's become our sanctuary to really be in on health and wellness. Like, it's a small place that you can really pull up on the walls and use to work out in. The walls are very close together, so you can benefit from strength training, or what I like to do is a lot of different training for yoga and mindfulness and building up strength slowly in that way, kind of rebuilding strength again from health and everything else. And it's been really cool for that. And recording for really deep recording is also good, but I'm starting to like recording in other places now, and been enjoying all this privacy, and having a smaller family and everything else kind of allows me to do that anyway, so I don't have to have just one place. I can be a lot more dynamic in my content. I don't want just one area to record in. I don't find that that is working well with my creativity. I like to be inspired by where I am and what I'm doing. But sometimes one special place is nice if you really get in where you're getting to know a special place. So this brings me into tech, and I'm not going to use the word productivity because I'm not that. There are times where we all need to be productive, but I'm certainly not living on this 24/7 vibe. And you probably know that about me by now. And naturally, I've always thought that tech and the internet could allow us to be more natural in our education, to be more natural in working from home and everything else. That's me, really. But the tech that allows us to be deeper in our artwork and bring things into a life design is what I'm really after here. And with science experiments, knowing the inner scientist in us, it is now the season of Google and Apple coming into design. That's why I've kind of returned to really getting in deep on Google Calendar. And AI with Google is becoming really cool when it comes to creativity, when it comes to content creation. And so that's going to be really interesting to see how it can also fit with live design. Grok has become my all-in-one system for dynamic living. It is a beta though. And I'm starting to see there's very basic needs about sending notifications, things like that, that I'm playing with in Grok that I want to learn. So I'm kind of putting everything into Grok, my whole life designed into Grok, and seeing where it goes. But I'm also, my love of the calendar as an artist book for myself, or the love of just creating a page, I can really do in Grok in a chart if I really consider my options here. But my love for experimentation and science behind all of this is also real. And so the best part about having AI in your life and in kind of science and all that kind of stuff is, and kind of like your own, it almost makes you feel like you have your own lab in a sense, at least if you test AI as much as we do. But we're testing multiple apps and things that are really beneficial. And so Structured has become that science hub for lab work on your health and yourself in a planner. It's kind of crazy, but that's kind of what it's there for. And when it comes to something like Grok, you can literally tell it, or ChatGPT for that matter, is really good at this too, because I've worked with it plenty on. And you can send notifications through ChatGPT, which I like. So never get too loyal to understanding that there's an all-in-one and that you can't be curious about other things. Because one of the things that I'm learning about AI is that Grok is everything to me, but it is a beta. It forgets things. It gets a little bit overloaded. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten even more overloaded. Like, it's actually it's handled everything in life pretty well at this point. But I can see where I'm curious about Google Gemini and how is it going to make the calendar feel more artful to me and design my day every day, design kind of like the future journaling, the past journaling of what kind of day I had on the calendar. Is it going to really expand upon that through an artist lens, not through a productivity lens? Is it going to are there going to be things? One of the things that Grok keeps encouraging me in conversational AI that I keep coming back to, and I'm not really bringing it up too much because it's something that takes a lot of time, and I've talked about Grok replacing it, is Notion. And Grok is discouraging a lot of these pricey apps, but then encouraging Notion. But then it's also all in one when it comes to when I'm telling it that it's more interactive in certain ways that I need it to be with its tone of voice than Notion. And then what it does is it understands that and then will design things in a more interactive way based on our history. And it knows the way that I like to design things and does it way different than Notion, but also doesn't bash apps necessarily if there was ever a time I needed them. Whereas sometimes these AIs will have a bias to them, whereas Grok does not. It's very much unbiased. But if you tell it you have certain preferences, it will become a lot more understanding of that by giving you reasoning, but then respecting deeply your own concerns and preferences, which is really necessary for understanding yourself better. So, permission to play. Try new air dry clays. Try new sketchbooks that will let you paint and draw. Try new apps. Try new hairstyles. It is summertime. It is the season of transitioning. I'm learning. Is Gemini going to help me in different ways? I had an opportunity to use Gemini, but I designed my communication with Grok in a heavy session last night for education. That was really important to respond to. But what was interesting about all of that is that it forced me to get out of my comfort zone and communicate in a more truthful way that I haven't been because of the season of life that we're in. So that's been really cool. Whereas maybe Gemini would be more professional, which sometimes you can have a more professional take. And what Grok is kind of teaching me, you can have a more professional take, but be artful and true to yourself at the same sort of time. I used to be overly professional in my communication to where it would actually make people very uncomfortable to work with me. And I'm starting to realize that deeply, like in email and texting and phone calls, in just my overall communication style. Whereas the warmer I've become in working with people, the more comfortable they feel to explain things better, to talk to me about different things, to even want to help with solutions and suggestions and really deeply care about the work that we're doing together. So that's something I'm learning and kind of like unlearning at the same time. Unlearning being professional, yes, respecting when it's, respecting the room and the time, but also not being afraid as an adult to be yourself and understand empathy in a way that allows you. We're starting to really have conversations about empathy over the last 5-6 years. It used to be more about an emotion, you're overly emotional, it can be weak, but it's also extreme overload of your sort of interactions with others. It's become a power of not just like a power play of if I have this much empathy over somebody, I have power over them. It's more like strengthening relationships too. Like if you absolutely need to survive and somebody's threatening you, empathy can be pretty powerful in a way that you're getting them to spill all their coffee, all their tea, and all that if it comes to they're threatening you and they're doing things that are against your values. Empathy can help with that in an emergency, but I never recommend doing it in a manipulative way. But if you need to get away from drugs and alcohol, if you need to get away from situations that are really unhealthy and violent and all that kind of stuff. That's what you do, is use empathy as a very smart and tactful way and get out of bad situations. But when it comes to the art of empathy in strengthening relationships, you can use it to understand people better. You can use it to understand where they're coming from a little bit more. And also for yourself, if you realize relationships are no longer working, the empathy you would have given to understand the other people, I've given way too much of. It's not empathy anymore. It's become sympathy, where I felt really sorry for people instead of just trying to understand myself better. Like, I've actually, in relationships, it's really jeopardized a lot, where I feel sorry for their situation. I feel sorry for their life. It's cost me a lot to do that. So then what I end up doing is realizing, like, the empathy has rotted into this sympathy game, and who can get the most sympathy. And I think we've all been there on the other side as well, where we've needed to survive, and we've needed people's understanding on that. We've needed to work with people better, but that we've also felt taken advantage of, which is probably what's turned you into this. Because others have taken advantage of you so much, now you need to hope that people understand where you're coming from. Like, it's become really hard. And so we got into this in an artist viewpoint, because in the artist science mindset, where science and art are together, math is joined, math, science, and art are together. It is really understandable to want to bring things into a design. And so Grok being an all-in-one and understanding and analyzing and all of that is really cool. But this is why apps are becoming a lot more integrative. I've integrated Google Calendar into Grok and Gmail into Grok and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really interesting about how that can work. And this is why apps hook together now. They integrate together. You don't always need IFTTT to do this, but apps will integrate together in a really cool way. Because when it comes to this technology now with AI, automation has always been kind of in our face, but even, like, especially with AI, it is not about choosing your main productivity app or even your main operating system anymore. Like, I can't say iOS versus Android anymore. I'm kind of working with communicating, at least with iOS, Android, Chromebook, and Windows will come into the mix. Not that I'm using all of them, not that I have a bunch of devices all the time. Some of that is half true with a few devices, but it's mostly about the art of communicating cross-platform with all of those platforms, with all those operating systems that will work together. And so kind of like developing all of this, it's really good to be around other people that understand this in an artful way and go do things and be around people in person. Maybe virtual works as well for you. And it kind of depends. If I'm doing virtual in my own time. I'm not necessarily always doing it on everybody else's time. If I'm doing in person, I will certainly do it on other people's time most of the time, as long as it's not interfering with personal family and the well-being of the family and being there for the family. And especially because we come together as a family, we will do things in person and adapt to people's schedules in that sense, as long as, again, the well-being. But in virtual, things being pre-recorded and posts and updates and things like that are very important and very modern to me. Live can be cool if you're really deep into a platform or a communication style, but to me, if I'm going to do that, in person is kind of the way to go, but then virtual is the way to go for creating and things like that. And so this content is becoming more dynamic with you again, and less about consistent time frames, which is nice, but also we are now at an age where the technology is finally ready to create more AI and more content with you that is a little more of a variety of what real life is and less about me just talking. And if I do talk, it's around some things that are important, but it's going to be to teach you in this way. Anybody can do this. And so what I want to start doing, because I'm still developing, I don't know if the podcast is even going to be involved anymore. Spotify's changing all the time, and I don't know how much time that's going to take to sort of like, I really want to figure that out as far as the platform, as far as like being involved in the podcast in one way, but then I do feel like everything kind of integrates better into YouTube dynamically, and YouTube takes multi-formats, multimedia. Video has become what I feel like I'm a little better at than podcast. I don't know that I'm as good at podcasting as I wanted to say I am in the past. Whereas here with a video, you've got multimedia content all the time with text, community posts, and video, and including on all the platforms, because you can write your text inside a video, have it read out, have it with different colors and fonts, and stand out with different emojis and effects, and have it really work. So art, right? We're being really dynamic in things. And so I am playing with what is Google and Apple doing, Grok being all in one to understand my life and understand the context. Even Grok is even explaining that I can use other apps and learn to connect them and give Grok as much context, but then not be afraid to step out into other apps. Meta is also integrating with different things in art and different ways of keeping your content and having your content with Apple and Google. So that's pretty cool, and I'll talk more about that as that updates. But Meta is also getting into this space of life design and productivity, if you will. So this is probably going to be the last sort of repetitive video that I do, because I really want to get more dynamic with you. I've been enjoying putting out music and sort of these little, these different concepts and these different songs and all of that, these different playlists for you, these different sort of sets, music sets, themes and everything else. But I'm just, I want to get more dynamic in teaching these different things. It's never really good to be too much, again, into that you're only allowed to use like one operating system, one app, because that's not even real, or that is not even unlimited. And we want to be unlimited. And so, but I think if you can find a love for a certain air dry clay, a certain notebook, a certain pen, you're allowed to say that, okay, this is like, I trust this with my life. I trust this with my day-to-day. I'm going to take this clay, this air dry clay. It's going to be in a bag in my purse, and this is the clay I would use while I'm out and about to just create. And then I also love this other clay for this other way of creating that is at a full-on table that is not portable, kind of a thing. So that's kind of what is required for the inner artist, the inner scientist. And cooking at the table, having a huge sprawl out, sitting down and enjoying it is what really gets me cooking and wanting to cook more. And standing up and cleaning, obviously, is necessary and all of that. And so I'd rather do plenty of that and then still be able to enjoy cooking at the end of the time, at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, and without being overly whelmed by cleaning, because that way there's two of us who are creative in art and one of us who is playing in art and who should be. And so with the three of us, with all of us as a family, we can then go in and learn so that as a parent, we can teach creation that is the way that our child wants to create. So, and the way that we want to sort of teach in our own way to you in different ways of creating content and being involved in our communities that we do online. That's what we value most, is being creative in life and all of that, and then kind of being involved in different ways in the communities, and that's not restrictive and all of that. So really cool that this is coming out this summer, all this tech. So we're going to be able to put a lot more creative stuff out here. I don't thrive on being repetitive and all of that. I know that there's different ways that people can do it where I will even watch it because it's in different formats and I don't mind it. But myself, I don't enjoy being repetitive. I'm not good at that. I'm better at being more dynamic in my content and variety. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I just hope that we can all grow and learn together from this. I'm excited to do this as a way of learning for myself and including you guys in this process with me and understanding that that is what it is about. I'm not expecting you guys to hit any buttons or take any actions, really. If something resonates with you and you feel it in your intuition, in your gut, then maybe there's some way that that is benefiting you and bringing you value. But maybe sometimes you just need to listen and you just need something to listen to while you're kind of enjoying yourself, or you're eating, or you're having something to drink, or you're taking a walk, or you're folding clothes, or you're just sitting down relaxing and taking a break or taking some time for yourself. You know, maybe you're listening as you're getting ready, as you are, you know, focusing on your hygiene or your self-care, or you're in your bathroom and kind of getting ready, doing what you need to do. You know, I don't really require you to take action just because I'm creating out here and I have the luxury to take my phone and create whatever I want for you. That's not bringing you value. What's bringing you value is having something that you can vibe with. And so that's why my content is going to be a lot less repetitive and a lot more dynamic. And I want to become a little more entertaining, I think. I want to get into entertainment with you. I didn't think I ever would because I didn't see the full picture before until I got into technology real young. Even before I was 18, I got deeper into technology, and then it's like, okay, all this has to be educational, and I'm like, you know, maybe we could do some entertainment in this, and we can just like, we can all express ourselves better with entertainment and teach better. When we say, forget about teaching and just enjoy what we want to express more and just be entertaining. I kind of want to get into entertainment with you, with art and science and tech and AI and all these things, and spirituality, of course, and all these things that matter. AI, of course, and all these different ways of creating. So that's going to be, I'm not going to say what genre because I'm not boxing myself in, but that's what's going to be happening. I'm excited. So here we are, and let's connect together in growing and seeing where we're at in life.